Hey y'all, who dat and welcome in. I am Jeff Nowak, and this is going to be a quick hitter episode of Inside Black and Gold. Obviously, a short week, but I did want to get you a separate episode on the injury report, what we know so far, what we're looking at as we get ready for Thursday night football. And I wanted to keep it separate from kind of the overall preview episode for the game, which we're going to try to post at some point on Wednesday. We're going to have a Broncos insider to break things down. We're going to dive a little bit more into the Sean Payton of it all, talk a good bit about that. But in this episode, I just want to give you a quick hitter on the injury report. I want to hear from Mickey Loomis. We had the Saints GM on WWL this week, had some interesting things to say, particularly about Dennis Allen and the situation surrounding the coaching. So I want to talk about that. And then in the second segment, I'm going to play you an interview I did Wednesday evening with Mike Haas on WWL. We get into a lot of Saints topics there, so it just makes sense to do it one time, get it out, get it to y'all, and then following up in the week, we'll have a more in-depth kind of Broncos preview. But without further ado, let's dive in to the injury report. It's long. There's 17 names on it for the Saints. That's a lot. You know, I go around the NFL, I look at some of these other injury reports. I know the Colts have a really long one. There's a couple teams with like 12, 13. I haven't found another team in the NFL that has 17 names listed for any week. So do with that information what you will. Something's up. There's no way around it. This is going to be something that we end up talking about a lot this season into the offseason, but let's just go through it. So on Tuesday, now keep in mind they did walkthroughs Monday and Tuesday, and that's kind of standard operating procedure for these Thursday night games. You gotta let these guys recover. Typically, you would have maybe a very light practice on Monday, and then Tuesday would be the player off day. So, I mean, that's just, you gotta let them recover. You gotta let them try to get their bodies back. But so you had 6 players DNPs on Monday. That number dropped to 5 on Tuesday. So let's talk about the players who didn't participate. Several of them not surprising. So you had guard Cesar Ruiz dealing with that knee injury. He's been out since week 4. Really kind of a frustrating situation. You think, hey, if you're going to miss 4 weeks, 5 weeks, get the guy onto IR. The Saints didn't do that. And you're now going on his 4th game missed anyway. Dennis Allen did indicate last week that he's getting closer. It's not a structural thing. He didn't need to have surgery. It's more of a kind of utility thing, being able to do what he needs to do on the football field. So we'll find out. Hopefully, I think the target for some of these guys will end up being, hey, we got a 10-day window here. Let's get some guys recovered. Let's get him back. Either way, I don't expect to see Cesar Ruiz out there. Quarterback Derek Carr is not going to play this week. And it sounds like he might miss multiple games beyond this. It's going to depend on how he recovers. Obviously, again, you have that 10-day window before you have to go out and face the Chargers. And the Chargers will be in the same situation that the Saints were in this week, which is kind of interesting. So the Saints, they had the misfortune of having to go on the road for Monday Night Football, come back and host a team on a short week that is coming off 10 days rest, which is a pretty big advantage when you really kind of factor it in. So that'll be the case for the Chargers. They're playing on Monday Night Football in week 7. And the Saints are playing on Thursday Night Football. So the Saints have to travel across the country, but they'll have 10 days rest compared to the Chargers 6. So, if you are of the belief that benefited the Bucs in this last week, then hopefully the Saints are the beneficiaries of that this time around. Either way, it's going to be a question mark whether you have Derek Carr at all. But we're going to have to watch. Dealing with that oblique injury, he's not practicing. He will not practice tomorrow either. He will not practice on Wednesday either. Pete Werner, hamstring injury, missed another practice. So he is trending not to play for a 3rd straight game. And that is frustrating. That is a problem. The Saints got to figure something out at the linebacker position. He injured his hamstring in a walkthrough. I cannot stress that enough. A walkthrough. How does that happen? I don't know. Now, the 2 injuries that are the most concerning, just in the sense that we haven't found a way to get through them yet because they haven't happened yet. Chris Olave dealing with that concussion. He is not back to practice on Tuesday, which to me kind of rules out any miraculous recovery. You got to come back. You got to get through a practice. Then you got to clear the independent neurologist. It's not going to happen by Thursday. So you're going into this game pretty well knowing you're not going to have Chris Olave, and you probably knew that on Sunday, if we're all being honest, with all things being equal. The one that is a bit of a surprise was Sheet Shaheed dealing with a knee injury. I didn't see him go in the injury tent during the game. I didn't see when the injury happened. Apparently happened during the fourth quarter, but it sounds like, based on what I'm hearing, that it's a reasonably significant knee injury. Like, I don't expect him to be out there on Thursday, and we'll have to see whether he misses games beyond that. But that means that you're going to be without your top 2 wide receivers. You're going to start a rookie quarterback, and you are going to give him no weapons. You are going to give him a 2/5 of your starting offensive line. You're going to give him Alvin Kamara at whatever percentage Alvin Kamara is. And you say, good luck, kid. What I'll say is, hey, at least these are the players that Spencer Rattler has been throwing to throughout camp. That's the silver lining I will give you. One bit of good news on the DNP portion of the program. Lucas Patrick, guard center Lucas Patrick, was upgraded to limited. We did see him out there on Tuesday. If he can go, I would expect him to slot in at left guard, bump Nick Saldiveri back to the bench. And I think that is an upgrade. I think that will help you to some degree. How much? I don't know. But Lucas has been solid at guard when you've had him in there. And hopefully, that will allow you to get something going in the run game. Because to this point, you have not been able to do that. And that's a massive problem. That is probably the biggest stumbling block of this offense at this point in the season. I don't think pass protection has been terrible. Has it been great? No, but you could live with it. The problem is your blocking in the run game, your ability to run the ball has been non-existent in 3 of your 4 losses. And when you can't run the ball throughout the course of the game, I mean, the reason the Bucs were able to take away Spencer Rattler the way they did was they stopped respecting the run. They were like, we can stop the run. We don't need to devote extra bodies to the run. Send a linebacker out to stop these boots, to get out in front of him so he can't just kind of survey the field and make a comfortable throw. Send somebody out there, put him under pressure, and see how he reacts to that. And you can do that because you're not getting any interior push. So that's got to change. Hopefully, if Lucas is back, he can do that, dealing with that chest injury, but we'll have to see. Okay. The rest of the list was either a limited participant or a full participant. So the first one we'll mention is Carl Granderson. He's dealing with a neck injury. He was limited on Tuesday. He was limited on Monday. I'm going to end up saying the wrong days. I've been saying the wrong days all week. He was limited on Monday. He was upgraded to a full participant on Tuesday. So that's a good sign. 3 other guys were full participants both days, but they are on the injury reports. That's safety Tyrann Mathieu with that forearm injury. I think there was some concern there when he went out. He missed the rest of the game. I think he probably got lucky a little bit. It was a kind of a deep contusion. Doesn't seem like it's going to be an issue. Won't keep him out. But that's the fourth time this season that he's gone out with an injury mid-game and has been a problem. So we'll have to wait and see on that. Linebacker Willie Gay still got that hand issue, played through it. Don't expect that to be a problem, but I do need him to make some tackles. That Chris Godwin touchdown catch and run is still seared into my brain. And then wide receiver Bub Means, I reported earlier in the week, he injured his thumb punching out the ball on that first Spencer Rattler interception. He told me after the game it wasn't a big deal. He didn't have anything wrapped on it. It was just a minor injury. He's listed on the injury report. He's going to be fine. And that's a good thing because you're at a point where I think Bub Means is your best weapon in the passing game, at least from the wide receiver position. And we'll see how that goes. Now, I thought he played well. I like the idea of getting Bub Means involved, but man, it would be nice if you had some sort of reliability at the wide receiver position. We'll have to wait and see. Hopefully he can surprise some people. Hopefully he can be this year's Puka Nacua, 5th round pick, strong guy, not the fastest in the world, but he can get the job done. Let's do it. Let's have Bub Means be the Puka Nacua of this year. Why not? Why not us? There's some reasons, but whatever. We'll continue. So those guys are full limited. It's a long list. Taysom Hill. He's been limited both days. Now, I was out there today. I didn't see him. He was not there during the portion of practice open to the media. It doesn't mean he didn't participate, but where was he? So I'm a little skeptical that he's going to be able to go. I'm not going to go so far as to say they're lying to you, but I do think there might be a little bit of gamesmanship going on here with the injury report to force Sean Payton and the Broncos to have to game plan for Taysom Hill and waste some time on it because I don't think he's going to play. We'll see. I'm hopeful. I'm hopeful that he plays because when he is out there, the Saints offense has looked a whole lot better. But something in my head says, hey, I don't think he's going to play, but I think they do want Sean Payton to be, or they do want the Broncos staff to be kind of staying up late, game planning for Taysom Hill. So we'll see. Either way, if you could get him back, massive boost. But I'm not going to hold my breath on it. Other guys, defensive end Payton Turner dealing with a knee injury. Taysom's dealing with a rib injury, by the way. That's been the same injury he's been having. Same injury he's been trying to work back from since leaving in week 4 against the Falcons. Other guys, Payton Turner, dealing with a knee injury. He was limited. Same injury he dealt with last week, played through it, so I expect him to be out there. Running back Alvin Kamara, limited again. Only listed with a hand injury, but we know he's been dealing with other injuries, right? Whether it's a hip, whether it's a rib, whether it's whatever. He's banged up. Limited again. I expect him to play, but I don't expect him to be anywhere near 100%, so we'll have to wait and see what that looks like for him. Defensive tackle Nathan Shepard, groin injury. He was limited. I expect him to go. JT Gray, safety, calf injury, limited. Alontae Taylor, shoulder. The shoulder he injured during the first half, went back to the locker room, got it taped up a little bit, came back in, played through it. I do think he was dealing with an injury there. I think that kind of played into some of the shoddy tackling technique that you saw from him, particularly on that Chris Godwin catch and run, because I just don't know if physically he was able to wrap up. But either way, that's got to be better. I expect him to go out there. He's a tough guy. He's going to play through whatever he's dealing with, but he's dealing with something. Either way, shoulder injury, limited. Wide receiver, last one, wide receiver Cedric Wilson, ankle injury, limited. So that's your whole roster. That's a starting lineup, right? When you look at the players that the Saints rolled out in week 1 and said, these are our starters. This is the top line of our depth chart. You do not have many of those guys left, whether they're on injured reserve, whether they're on whatever. That's a problem. The guy who's not on this injury report because he has now been added back to the active roster is Kendre Miller. And if you don't play him this week, then just cut him. If this is not a week you can get Kendre Miller involved, just cut him. Just stop forcing me to ask about it, because if you cannot on a short week with all these guys banged up, find a way to have Kendre Miller impact your game plan in some way, then it's not worth having him around. Figure it out. I don't know. I expect him to be out there. I expect him to play. I'm not saying that they should cut Kendre Miller. I'm saying that you need to find a way to get him involved. Coaching staff has been speaking reasonably highly of him. You haven't had these, he doesn't get it. You don't have these backhanded compliments or, passive aggressive statements from the coaching staff. It sounds like he's been out there. He's working. Let the guy go. Let the guy make an impact of some kind, because someone's got to do it. It's not going to be Jamal. We found that out. He got 3 offensive snaps last week. Let's get Kendre Miller involved. Okay. Shifting gears from the injury report, I do want to go and play you a clip from Mickey Loomis on the Saints coaches show last night. It was the slot that typically Dennis Allen would fill, but the coaches are obviously a little behind the 8 ball from a time perspective. So Mickey Loomis filled in. So it's Bobby Hebert, Mike Haas chatting. Bobby's at the Silver Slipper Casino. It's where they do that show on Mondays. So you're going to hear some background noise. Either way, he was asked okay, what about the coaching staff? How do we view the coaching staff as it pertains to, man, you've lost 4 games in a row. You are the defensive-minded head coach, and you've allowed 51 points. You have the number 32 ranked total defense in terms of yards allowed. 32. This isn't like a sample size issue either. We're through 6 weeks. That's a third of the season. That's not, hey, okay, we'll balance this out. That is, you are the worst defense in the NFL through 3 weeks, or through 6 weeks. That's a problem for me. But anyway, this is what, and this is a quote that's been kind of shared around. This people have already had their say on it, but this is what Mickey Loomis had to say.
Now, Mickey, if you put your head on the pillow a Saturday night before the Sunday game, and if you would have had a dream, and this dream is reality, that we're playing Atlanta and they're not going to score an offensive touchdown, I think you would take that, hell yeah, we're going to win the game. And then you look at what occurred yesterday. We get 3 interceptions and we run back a punt for a touchdown. You're not supposed to lose those kind of games. I mean, I was shocked just based on, if you just told me that that's what occurred in the game, I'd be like, man, what the hell? How did we lose that? Now, does that come to coaching? I mean, because you have those things. that you think that definitely that's a winning formula to win, but you got to close the deal. Like, okay, you look at the Chiefs. They might be winning ugly, but they close out the games. And then we've been in situations, and the Eagles and the Chiefs, the Eagles needed a touchdown. We couldn't close them out. We played good defense. And then you look at too many times, and even Atlanta, not being able to close out games. But just looking what occurred then and what we did as far as taking away the football, are you getting like a special teams touchdown? Come on, you can't afford to lose those games, because that could be the difference whether you get to double-digit wins or not.
Yeah, I think what you're getting at here is that, then you want to get your team to the point where you expect to win, because when you expect to win and you have those things that can happen that don't go your way, they're just little speed bumps that you cruise right over, right? Because you have confidence and you have a lot of players that believe they're going to make a big play, when it counts. And when you hope to win, and I think most teams are in that position of where they hope to win, those speed bumps become little mountains. And so we have, our goal is obviously to get to the point where we're expecting to win. And I felt like then we were moving that direction after the first 2 or 3 weeks, right? And then, we've had some adversity. We've had, like I said, we've had a lot of injuries, a lot of guys missing that are key players, playmakers for us. And, we weren't able to close out those 2 games, Atlanta and Philadelphia. So we got to get back to that. We know we have a good team. We know we do. And we're confident in that. But we have to weather this storm and weather these weeks where we're not at full strength, and we have to find a way to be competitive, and find ways to win games. And again, that starts with not beating ourselves, right? Getting back to fundamentals. We got to coach better. We got to play better, and I believe we will.
Well, Mickey, I'm looking. We +3 in the turnover margin, and that's why it's shocking to me. Even last season, we were +11. You look at scoring, offense, and defense. I'm like, how in the hell we didn't get to 10 wins? That's why I still emphasize, to me, and is that you have to look at the head coach. Is that we're not closing out games. We're highly competitive, but it's a bottom line business. Did you win or did you lose the game? That's why I think fans are frustrated, because you could be so close and so far, and you might say there's not much difference between 10-7 and 7-10. But if you're 7-10, the Who Dat Nation is restless, and then they're frustrated. But if you're 10-7, then everybody's ecstatic. But the bottom line is you have to win. It's not like, we're competing hard and playing hard. That it's a bottom line business. You have to win, and it's not just we're in the hunt, we're playing hard and all that. You got to win. Or look, 6, 7, 8 coaches get fired every year because they don't win and people want changes. And so we already got one coach fired in New York. That didn't surprise me with the Jets, how they are. They always been dysfunctional. But every year, everybody wants to win, but everybody can't win. So 6, 7, 8 coaches get fired. And that could be the difference. Comebacks to haunt you when you don't finish games, to have a chance to be in the postseason and get the double-digit wins.
Yeah, look, everything you say is accurate. Results matter. They do. But I think one of the things that I think good organizations do is that, man, you look beyond the results. What's the reason for the result? And how do you fix the reasons that keep you from winning? And it's not always about the head coach. Sometimes it is, but it's not always about that. It's about a lot of different variables. A lot of things are involved in winning and winning a particular game, or winning a lot during the course of a season. And so that's what we'll look at that when the time comes. But the time is not right now. We have a lot of games left. We have a talented team, and we'll see where it goes from here.
Yeah, beyond the results. Okay, so let's unpack that, right? Like, you have the GM saying you have to look beyond the results. I think that is kind of some canned drivel to an extent. Like, I don't think that it's necessarily, I don't think there's a whole lot of meaning to be gleaned from that, other than the GM is kind of setting you up to say, like, we're not firing the coach mid-season. Like, that's what that is. That is Bobby asking a reasonably direct question. Hey, are you going to hold this against the head coach? And is that something that you need to figure out right now? That's basically what he's asking. And what Mickey is saying is, No. We think that things are reasonable right now, and we're going to let this play out. Like, that's what he's saying. He's not saying, hey, there's nothing that could happen that would change my opinion of the head coach and the coaching staff. That is a servant leader kind of allowing a coaching staff to have a fighting chance. One way or another, you're not firing a head coach after Sean Payton comes to town, because you're not going to give him that. You're not going to give him the satisfaction of making him feel like, hey, he forced your hand on this. As much as these guys want to make it out like this is some congenial thing, and these guys are all like, oh, lovey-dovey, there's some resentment there. Like, there's some resentment when a guy kind of leaves you high and dry the way Sean did. But either way, I kind of take that as Mickey kind of confirming what I've always felt to be true, which is this is not going to be a front office that just says, hey, things are going poorly, let's fire this guy into the sun and see if maybe a interim coach could fix things. You're not going. I don't think this is the front office that does that. This is not the Jets front office, right? And I do think that there's a significant difference there, and I don't have a problem with it. Like, again, I've said this a few times. I don't see how firing a coach midseason would actually benefit you. It would just kind of create all these other problems. And not firing a head coach midseason is not the same as saying, hey, there's nothing he could do wrong that would lose him this job. At a certain point, the writing will be on the wall, and he has lost a job. But I just don't think you're ever going to hear Mickey come out and say that. And I think that's why people get annoyed, because you want him to come out and be Jerry Jones and just kind of be a dick. And he's always going to back his staff and back his coaches. So it is what it is. Either way, did want to play that for you. Did want to get into that. We'll talk more about it. Hopefully the tone changes. Like, that's the thing. This week is going to make a big difference one way or the other on how we view this coaching staff. Because if you come out and you get a win, and you can get things headed in the right direction, great. You give yourself a chance. You move forward. You got 10 days to kind of reset, maybe get some of these players back and do whatever. If you can't, if you lose, and especially if you lose in an ugly way, the way you did last week, then I think that tells you a lot one way or the other. So we'll find out. But either way, let's wrap up this segment. I'm Jeff Nowak. This is Inside Black and Gold. Just a quick episode kind of getting you geared up for the week. Wanted to get you a middle of the week episode, even though there really is no middle of the week. Didn't want to go straight from post-game analysis pod to preview pod like there will be coming at you forward. But either way, next segment is going to be a segment that I did with Mike Hoss on WWL Radio Tuesday evening. Got into a lot of topics, so just feel like, hey, might as well just play that for you rather than kind of go into it all again. Either way, appreciate everyone for listening. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do that. If you listen to us on Apple Podcasts, please leave a rating, leave a review. Again, we don't really, I don't ask you for anything. We don't have a Patreon. We never will. The way that you can support this podcast is by subscribing, telling a friend, saying, hey, you listen to podcasts? You like the Saints? Here's a podcast. It's really that simple. That's all I ask for. Anyway. Appreciate everyone who, and I know there's people who do that. So I appreciate everyone who does that, everyone who listens, everyone who chimes in our live chats, all that. Hit me up on Twitter at Jeff_Nowak. If you have any questions, comments, whatever, DMs are open. And without further ado, let's wrap this segment up again. Inside Black and Gold. Who dat? We'll be right back. And we're back on Inside Black and Gold. Jeff Nowak coming at you solo. Quick episode tonight, just kind of getting you geared up for the middle of the week with all the injuries and whatever. Again, went through the injury report in the last segment, talked about what Mickey Loomis said on WWL Radio earlier this week. You can get that whole interview at WWL.com. I also tweeted it out if you want to go find it there. It was interesting. It was some interesting stuff. Bobby Hebert is always an interesting listen in those situations because he has no problem being very direct to the GM on certain subjects. But this segment is going to be also from WWL Radio. It's a segment an interview that I did with Mike Hoss on Tuesday's edition of the Coaches Show, or whatever we call it. I can never remember. I think it's technically the Saints Hour is the title of the show. Monday is the Coaches Show. Tuesday is the Saints Hour. And that's where we are. But me and Mike will get into a lot of stuff. And so without further ado, enjoy.
I know we'll probably lean more towards Denver, but there's some things defensively and offensively that I want to kind of discuss. And you don't have to, you can sit back for a couple of seconds here and just chill, because it's going to take me a little bit of time. So, and it kind of starts out defensively, but it's also defense and offense. All right. So, third quarter, Tampa Bay. Saints are on top, 27-24. They get the ball, drive down to the 35. So that's a 53-yarder. It's the third down. It's the pass. They thought it might be a fumble, but they ruled it incomplete. But you still got the face mask on Connor McGovern. So you drive all the way down there, but you end up punting, right? So you don't really kind of get the momentum. You punt, you pin them back to the 8. Tampa doesn't do anything. They punt to you. Great field position. New Orleans 47. Sack. You punt it again to their 8. You have pinned them twice inside the 10, and the second time they get a touchdown. So just hold that for a second. So you've had 2 great opportunities, good field position. You pinned them back to the 8. You got 0 points. They got 7. Go back to the Atlanta game. You pinned Atlanta at the 12, the 10, the 19, the 7, the 30, and out of that, they got field goal, punt, field goal. 6 possessions of the 30 and inside, mostly inside the 12, and the opponent got 4 scores, 3 field goals, and a touchdown. Where am I going? I'm going, this is the drive where it ends. It's the 2nd and 5. You pin Tampa back. They get it at their own 45, and they throw this pass to Godwin that he takes 55 yards for the score, the worst tackling of the game on that play, and it never got better, right? It just seemed like that play, and it should not be the backbreaker, and it wasn't, but from that moment, tackling became such a huge issue. And my other point is that when you can back teams up, that is when this defense has to shine, because you've got Rashid Shaheed. If he catches the ball at the 40, his own 40 to 45, man, he's in territory within seconds, and he brought it back for a touchdown. That is when this defense has to be at its best, and that is when it has not been at its best.
Well, I mean, let me stop you. So, what happened in the second quarter, right? Like that's how you were able to get back in the game, because you took advantage of those situations. Right?
You
backed up the Bucs. They got themselves into trouble with penalties. Rashid Shaheed's kick return or punt return touchdown. I can't remember. Camarda was punting with his heels at the back of the end zone. Right?
Yep.
Like the 2 interceptions were thrown deep in Bucs territory. When you get teams back up like that, they either play conservative or they try to make something happen, and that's advantage you. So I mean, yeah, you saw both sides of that coin in that game, where hey, when you take advantage of those situations, you make life easier on your offense, especially an undermanned offense with a rookie quarterback. You give them a chance. When you allow long drives out of those situations, that's how you end up being number 32 out of 32 teams in terms of total yards allowed, right? And that's why you end up losing the time of possession battle. I think you could say the same thing about the Chiefs. The Chiefs had several long drives in that game.
Oh, my gosh. I think they had like 84 plays. Like, it was crazy.
Right. That's how you end up losing the time of possession battle by 20 minutes in the 60-minute game. But no, the missed tackles, and it's honestly, like, you could say, hey, they need to do more tackling drills. They need to do whatever. These guys know how to tackle. These are not all, rookie players. Willie Gay knows how to tackle, right? Alontae Taylor knows how to tackle. It's just they're getting out of I think everyone's trying to play hero ball a little bit.
No, I agree.
Especially in that moment. You're trying to make something happen because hey, this is how we got back into the game. We forced some turnovers. Willie kind of outran himself on that play. If you go back and watch, I mean, if all he does is kind of funnel Chris Godwin to the sideline, if he just kind of leverages him inside and forces him to get to that boundary, someone's going to come up and make the tackle. Instead, he kind of gets too far outside. And Joe Woods kind of said it today. It's a cutback league. Everyone's always trying to cut back because the athleticism is too good. And you can't allow someone an open run to the middle of the field. The Saints' top 5 tacklers in that game were defensive backs. Yeah. Think about that. I get that you play a lot of nickel. But that's crazy. And so, I mean, it's a problem, but it's not a problem of like, hey, these guys can't physically tackle. They know how to tackle. They're capable of tackling. I think it's a mental thing. I really do. And I think you kind of just have to straighten that out. I hope there's been some uncomfortable conversations in that room. I hope that
People are getting taken to task for the mistakes that they're making, because that's what they are. It's not a talent issue. It's not a question of physically being able to do it. It's a question of, hey, there's a tackle to be made in front of you. You got to go make it right now. If all the Saints did in that game was make the tackles in front of them, I don't know if they win it, but it's a much closer game.
Right, because the Godwin play is kind of what you wanted. He was checking down, right? You got them to do what you wanted on a 2nd and 5, threw a check down in the flat, and it ends up being 55 yards. Now, the inability to stop the run, we'll talk about the ability to run the ball, where the Saints have struggled. I mean, I think things, it just got out of control against Tampa. I mean, Sean Tucker had 2 carries.
You mean future Hall of Famer Sean Tucker?
Right. 2 carries for 7 yards and 1 reception for 14 coming into the game. And then they have, they're so balanced. 14, 136. Irving, 14, 81. Shepard, 4 for 31. I mean, their average per carry and the explosive plays, right? I mean, just the explosive plays has hurt this defense so terribly. But let's flip it a little bit. So offensively, and beyond Alvin, and I think, judging from what we heard from Mickey last night, we will see Kendre Miller Thursday. I think he'll be on a pitch count, but I mean, it's been a long time since what it was at July 22nd in Irvine, California, right? To see that kid on the field. And so you wonder how this offense is going to run better, but you feel like maybe it's, if Taysom does come back to some degree, I don't know, but you feel like if they've got to do, that's what I've never heard Deuce in the booth say, stop running that play, that inside run in the middle. He's like, stop running that play. It was tough sledding.
Yeah, well, so for Kendre, I don't even know if pitch count is the right word. I think it's more like how many trust falls will you do before you stop having faith that someone's going to catch you? Because it's not. I don't think it's a physical thing for him. I think he is healthy enough to play. It's more just, okay, what do you trust him to do? How much do you trust him to do in the offense? Do you trust him to pass protect? Because if you don't, then he's not going to be in on those plays, right? And Jamal Williams' usage has been a bit baffling to me. I think his offensive snap count has basically gone down week over week over week over week. He had 3 offensive snaps in that game, which I don't know. I really don't understand in a game where you want to take some of the heat off of Alvin, and he's banged up. You can't get him in there. But, no, I think you got to find ways to manufacture offense. And you saw the Saints try to get a little creative with Spencer. They got him out of the pocket a good bit. The reason those boots stopped working, it's not that, he ran them poorly. It's that, in large part because the linebackers for the Bucs stopped respecting the run. Like, that boot works because it's a play action, and then you boot away from it. But the linebackers typically will have to hold in the middle of the field. At some point in the second half, you saw Levante David just start getting wide at the snap because he knew that, okay, this is not going to get handed off. It's going to boot back, and I'm going to take it away. And, so the issue is you can't run the ball. You can't keep them honest on defense so that your boot game will work. They're sending a lot of green dog pressure. I know Deuce talks about this a lot. It's basically, hey, you have an assignment in coverage. If that guy stays in the block, I'm blitzing, right? And so that's how you were able to generate some extra pressure because the Saints have to keep guys in the block. So, no, it's not being able to run the ball has been very, very problematic for this team. And it's tough to see how that improves because you are so undermanned on the offensive line. You were able to get the tight ends involved in the passing game, which was nice. I think that helped open up some things that, the best drive of the game, you hit Foster Moore over the 40-yard pass play down the middle of the field, something we have not seen at all over the first 5 weeks of the season, right? The tight end getting downfield, it's amazing.
Right, a seam route with Jimmy Graham doing the Who Dat chant. It was perfect.
Right. No, but I mean, if you can do stuff like that more, and you can kind of, it's like a can opener in the middle of the field. That'll make life easier. You got to be able to get that wide zone run going. I don't know. It's tough because I know Alvin is banged up. I don't know how much that's affecting him, but I thought that game in particular, he looked slow in that game, and he just never was able to get space. I know he's dealing with a hand injury. He had like 3 drops, so maybe that affected him. I think Spencer might need to learn, get a little better at touch passes. I think sometimes he just puts too much heat on the ball, but obviously you're out there, you got to catch the ball. But yeah, you got to execute. You got to do the little things, the simple things, and then the big things will come for you.
So rookie versus rookie, Bo Nix has had just an interesting kind of start. They're 3-3 are Denver. So he had 2 interceptions in each of his first 2 weeks, but yet just 1 interception in his last 4 games. He had 0 touchdowns in his first 3 games, but he's had 5 touchdowns passing in his last 3, also rushing for 3 touchdowns in the 6 games. And all you have to do is look at this up and down is look at the Jets game when he was 12 of 25 for 60 yards, 1 touchdown, and won the game as they beat the Jets 10-9. I mean, I watched the Chargers game, and this is a great. I mean, Denver's defense is pretty stout, right? But offensively, they're certainly playing better of late. But I mean, just give me your take of the Denver offense and Bo Nix.
Yeah, so, I'd like to think that the Saints can stop Javonte Williams, and if they can, and I feel good about the matchup, but I can't confidently say they'll be able to stop the run game. But no, I mean, it is, the Saints, you look at it like, okay, the Saints defense has struggled. They've gone against four very good quarterbacks over the last 4 weeks, right? Like you're talking about Jalen Hurts, Kirk Cousins, Pat Mahomes, Baker Mayfield. And like, that's a difficult run of quarterbacks. Not everyone has a quarterback like that in the NFL. And one of the quarterbacks who is not that is Bo Nix. He's going to walk into the Superdome for the first time. He's going to be playing on a short week for the first time. That should be advantage Saints. Now, obviously, the Saints have the same question on their offense with Spencer Rattler. He's never played in a Thursday night game. He's never had to prepare for a game in 3 days. So, both defenses, I think, are going to tee off to some extent. The Saints defense needs to be able to shut down the Broncos offense. How much can Sean Payton install in 3 days? I actually think the Saints are getting off lucky in this matchup having it be on a Thursday, because if you gave Sean a full week to prepare, I have a feeling he'd be pulling out all the stops and trying to do basically like what the Lions did to the Cowboys last week with all the trick plays and the linemen catching touchdowns, basically just trying to embarrass them. I don't think you're going to be able to do that if you're Sean Payton this week. Darren Rizzi actually had a funny comment today. He was like, hey, at least we don't have to worry about an ambush punt. And you can thank Darren for that, because the ambush punt no longer exists because of the rule change that he championed and changing the kickoff format. So they at least don't have to worry about any surprise onside kicks. But no, I feel pretty good about it. I think this is a game that the Saints should be kind of prideful in. Like, I think Thursday Night Football often comes down to, like, okay, who wants it more, right? Who wants to go out there and grit through it? You're going to be sore. You're going to be tired. There's no way you have recovered from the game you played on Sunday. Who wants it, right? Who wants to go out there and have some pride? And if the Saints want this season to go the way they want it to go, that's how they've got to be. They have a lot more riding on this game than the Broncos do. And, I don't think, the Broncos roster is going to be super emboldened by, it's Sean's revenge game. Like, the Saints roster should be the one feeling like, hey, we want to put a statement win out there. So, I don't know. I'd like to think that they can go out there and exercise some of these demons a little bit.
Yeah, it's so important. You don't want to get into a 5-game losing streak. You have a mini bye after this where you go on the road to take on the Chargers. And, watching Bo Nix against the Chargers, ironically. So, I mean, it's so much different than like a Mahomes or a Baker where he's running to extend plays. Bo Nix is running for his life, right? He was running for his life. Now, I will say that by the end of the game, I had a much different feeling about his elusiveness and his ability to avoid. He's a pretty good athlete. He may be running for his life, but he did a pretty good job of doing just that. He's not doing it like Mahomes and Mayfield, but that'll be a different situation. But you're right. It's like, because it's 3 games in 11 days. That's just wrong. Whatever. It is what it is. But now you've got this game, you're right, that probably is far more important to the Saints and Sean Payton's return and all of that. But then you've got this break. And if you can get this win and get to 3-4 and get healthy, we've always said the second half of the season is kind of where it is. And I think really we don't often talk about the opposing team's defense of a 3-3 team, but it's Vance Joseph, right? Marrero native. I mean, they've only given up. They're 4th in the league in points, 16, 5th in the league passing. I mean, they're tops on 4th down. They're tops in the red zone. I mean, that's the reason, kind of where they are.
Yeah, and I mean, I think LSU fans, if you remember those LSU-Auburn matchups back when Bo Nix was at Auburn, like he scrambled a lot in those games, and I remember just being like, God, they can't get him to the ground. He's not the most athletic guy in the world, but he can extend plays, and we've seen the same struggle with that, so it definitely is something to be a little concerned about, but I don't have as much concern about him making plays downfield as I did with Baker and Pat. The interesting thing, it's like the 3rd or 4th time the Saints have been able to scout both of their next upcoming opponents in one game the week before they played them, which is kind of crazy. But the other thing that I think is notable is, hey, one of the difficulties the Saints faced this week was they had a short week. They went on the road, faced Kansas City, came back, and had to host a team that was on 10 days rest. So not only were you on a short week, you were going against a team with extra rest. Well, the Saints next week, they get that luxury. The Chargers this week are going on the road for Monday Night Football, and then hosting a Saints team on 10 days rest. So you should feel like you have the advantage in that matchup. And I think, hey, if you can find a way to win this game, and you can then take advantage of that rest, get some players healthy, get some players back, go out there and beat a Chargers team that I don't think is built to win right now, then you're right back where you need to be. You're 4-4 with a very favorable schedule in hand over the final half of the season. So you're right there. Like, it's easy to look at this and look at a 51-27 loss and say, it's over. Like, everything's done. But everything is still right in front of you. You just have to go out and string some wins together. That's what good teams do. Good teams don't win, lose, win, lose, win, lose. Good teams, maybe they got off to a rocky start, but then they string 4, 5, 6 wins together, and suddenly you're looking at double-digit wins. That's what all those Saints playoffs teams from 2017 to 2020 did. Every one of those teams had a win streak of 6 or more games. And so that's what you've got to do. You've got to find ways to win close games and string some wins together, and then you're going to be where you want to be. Good teams win consecutive games. Bad teams lose consecutive games. And at some point, you got to decide what you are.
So when the Broncos take the field and people grab their playbook or their game book and they see Malcolm Roach, Jordan Jackson, Will Lutz, Lil Jordan Humphrey, Adam Troutman, Lucas Kroll on the practice squad, A.T. Perry, Quan Alexander, Calvin Throckmorton. I think that's all. I'm not 100% sure. That's a lot of familiar names.
The Saints, the Broncos might have more former Saints from the Sean Payton era than the Saints have from the Sean Payton era. I haven't actually gone and counted, but I imagine it's pretty close.
Yeah, I hadn't thought about that. You're right. So just final thoughts, and we'll let you go. I guess it has been a short week. You couldn't have kind of tackled worse in that second half. You came back in that second quarter, and it just felt like it all eroded so quickly because of and like Tampa is kind of what we just talked about. Tampa played Thursday against Atlanta. Then they played the Saints. Then they got not only normally they got a Monday night game. So they've had like 3 games in 19 days. The Saints have had 3 games in 11 days. It is what it is, but if you had to say the most important thing for the Saints offense for them to be successful Thursday night to get this thing back on track, what would that be?
Oh, you got to run the ball. There's no way around it. You got to find a way to run the ball. I don't know if you can manufacture it somehow. It's got to happen for you. You got to do it. And that's why I was a little bummed that Kendre wasn't active, because I just think he's just got to have a burst that I don't know if you're seeing from Alvin right now. And so I'd like to see him get some touches early in that game, see if he can't make an impact, and get the Broncos on their heels a little bit. The other thing I'd say is, play from ahead. I'm tired of watching this Saints team play from behind. I need to see them play from ahead, just take control of a game and play the game on your terms, right? When you're down 17-0, the idea of playing a game on your terms, that's out the window, right? When you're giving up free touchdowns on punts that, you should have your offense on the field, instead you're down 7-0, you're playing the game on their terms, right? I want to see the Saints play this game on their terms. You dictate how this game is going to go, and I think you can go win a game.
All right, good stuff. Thanks again to Mike for having me on. Obviously, weird week. Only 3 days to get through all of this stuff. I've been forgetting what day of the week it is every day. It's been a problem. I've tweeted Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Monday. I think it's Tuesday. I think that's what's happening. It's Tuesday. We are getting geared up for Saints 2 and 4 hosting the Broncos 3 and 3. Sean Payton's return to the Superdome. We're going to have a lot more coming at you on Wednesday. We're going to have a full preview episode. Going to get Steve Geller on here. We're going to have a Broncos insider on here to kind of break down what all they've been dealing with. I know about Bo Nix. I know about Javonte Williams. I don't know a lot else that's been going on with the Broncos other than maybe Sean Payton, who I think is still there, right? He's still the coach. All right. Because I talked to Bub Means today and he was a little confused. But either way, we're going to get you a lot. We're going to have a post-game episode posting on Friday morning. So just keep that schedule in mind. Obviously, it's going to be a bit of a blur, but we will get through it. Again, thanks everyone for listening. This is Inside Black and Gold. If you haven't subscribed yet, whether it's on YouTube at WWL Sports, on Apple Podcasts, wherever you get your podcast, make sure to do that. Leave a rating, leave a review. Let me know what you think. Let me know what you want to see more of. Let me know what you want to see less of. Let me know what you think of my haircut, all that good stuff. And with that all in mind, let's end this episode. Who dat? Go Saints. Be talking to you soon. Peace.